Well, I will tell you that you will have it probably next year, but I will tell you that in cases where there are successes, it's a particular methodology.
But if you've been compiling this information for 10 years,
We have.
why are we now waiting to next year to come up with a report? What stage are we on? I'm just saying, because
No, I understand.
I'm bothered by it, because the children who are, for the most part, in these schools are children from neighborhoods that I represent. Even in District 3, which is not quite Harlem, but it is the Upper West Side. But be that as it may, and I've looked at this in other countries, and other cities and states, particularly in Albany, where they all closed down. In other places of the country, they all closed down. How come the ones in New York City stand, but never as a success model, but they don't make reports that brag about that as it relates to our public schools in general?
We will get back to you on the report.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. We've been joined by Senator Kruger, but Senator Felder has questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much. My questions are in no particular order, so you'll have to forgive me. I've been trying to listen. You've mentioned listening a number of times. I've been trying to listen throughout the hearing. You mentioned that when the mayor and you were up in Albany, you met with many people. Did you meet with Senator Stewart Cousins, the leader of the Democrat minority?
I did
Yeah.
the prior trip to Albany, yes.
I'm talking with the mayor. And what about the assembly leader, Carl Hastie?
The mayor, I met with Carl Hastings.
Okay. And what about Senator Flanagan, the leader of the majority in the Senate?
I met with him on a prior trip to
Did the
Albany.
mayor meet with him when he come up to Albany?
I have no idea.
Can you ask somebody? I'm sure somebody knows the answer to that question.
Not on the last trip.
Yeah. So, I think that would have been a good thing. I think it would have been a good thing that the mayor, since he's not coming to another hearing, and I so far I haven't heard anyone explain why, and I think people are disappointed that when he was up in Albany, I think we can agree that that it would have been the right thing. You know, the topic of mayoral control has become more political than real. And the discussions about 7 years, 3 years, 1 year, this is not, in my mind, I speak for myself, so I apologize to my colleagues in advance. This is not a lower...
I know you don't speak for us, it's okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
You got me off track. Now I don't know what I want to say. Anyway, this is not a Lower East Side bargain where you walk into a store, at least you used to, walk into the store and you say, how much is the suit? The guy says 200 because he wants 100, and the other guy says, I'm giving you 50 because he wants to pay 75. So, you know, people who say, no, I mean, I've been looking at some of the testimony that's been given to us. I've been trying to look through it. I would just suggest, I'm going to have to leave soon as well, but it would be very helpful if I had stayed longer for people who come up to testify to just start out by saying whether they're in favor or not in favor, or they're in favor but. So, because we kept on saying about that, it's about the children. So, the years, in my mind, it's pretty clear that we're in favor, Simcha Felder, I'm in favor of mayoral control, and the only question is about improving, highlighting the things that work well and highlighting things that can be improved. So a lot of the discussions, and I'm looking at you only because I'm about to ask you questions, but it's not addressed to you. I think this is a lot of the discussions that have been taking place are political dreck. And for those that don't know what that means, that's a Yiddish term for garbage, trash, or anything else you want. So in my mind, I think that it's important to focus on the education issues specifically, because one of the people who are testifying had something called a report card, and I think it's pretty good. I don't necessarily agree with their assessment, but they go through items: arts education, special transparency, accountability, special education, things like that, and that's what I think, that's the focus. So, having said that, and feeling a little better, getting that off my mind, so what I wanted to know is, I'm curious, the mayoral control issue, really the groundwork for that was laid by Mayor Giuliani. I think that without that, Mayor Bloomberg would never have been able to do it. During that time, I understand that you've been an educator for many, many years. During that time, were you in favor of mayoral control of the system?
I think in terms of the stability of the system, I've always wanted that to be part of it. I also...
But that wasn't my question.
No,
That was
I
your
think
question.
certainly as a superintendent, I felt that it was important to not have a patronage system
Yeah.
where principals were often chosen for political reasons. So that mayoral control did take that away.
All right. You and I know that you don't want to answer the question, so I won't ask it to you a third time.
No, I will say yes, definitely, in the sense that there was too much patronage in the system, and people got jobs they not necessarily qualified for. And with mayoral control, I think putting superintendents in charge of picking principals is a much better system.
Okay,
Education.
I apologize. Thank you
That's
for
okay.
answering the question. So, you know, when you go on interviews, they always ask you, what's your weakness, right? So I'd like you to ask you, what do you think are problems that have to be addressed in the education system as it is?
Oh, my goodness, we can have a whole other hearing on this. I think making sure that
Encourage me.
I think the most important thing is that everyone has to see themselves invested and need to support public education. This is not parents who need to be invested. This is everyone, the CEOs of companies, everyone has to see public education as an investment. And I think for too long, we've only tried to get parents and educators involved. It's got to be everybody, and it's got to be everybody working together, because we're not going to have the workforce of tomorrow and not everyone's invested. So I would say that's one of the things that is a real challenge. And it's one of the reasons also we've expanded the groups of people we speak to. I actually meet with CEOs. I meet with the New York City Partnership. Everyone needs to understand the importance of public education.
Okay, I don't want to forget to thank you and thank the mayor for all the good work, clearly. And I just want to tell the chair, I did get a response to my question. My mother always said I was special, so I did get a response to my question. But this question, you didn't answer me. I'm asking you, I want to know what you believe are the weaknesses in your educational system at this time that should be improved.
Well, I certainly think our work with special needs students and English language learners needs more concentration. It's not because we're not trying, but it's just a very heavy lift. I think also, kids in temporary housing and homeless shelters, big issue. And with all the support we're putting in it, it's almost like something that requires 24/7 kind of attention. So I think that's it. I think one of the other major challenges is also recruitment of the best teachers and making sure, particularly teachers to work with special needs kids and English language learners. We want to increase our dual language programs, but we don't have enough teachers who speak two languages in academic ways. So there's a lot of challenges. There's enough challenges to keep me busy for a very, very long time. But I think focusing on the successes, one of the things we've been doing a lot is partnering schools that are successful in something, learning partners, showcase schools, so schools that have solved a problem can be partnered with another school who has the same problem. But challenges, there are more than enough to go around.
I would just say that when somebody like me asks you what your weakness is, that may be a compliment, because it's clear to me that there have been many successes, without
Thank you.
question. On another topic, last time when you were in Albany with the mayor, I asked what the ratio of psychologist to student is in the system. I'm wondering whether you have that information.
Actually.
Do 1 second.
Thank you. So
And
I'll
we've
go on
in-
to the next question.
and we've increased the number in this particular budget.
I'll go on to the next question while you find that. I am concerned that although the city has invested tremendous amounts of money in protecting our children, the issue of terrorism is on everyone's mind, and at this point in the city schools, we have security officers that do not carry guns. They are unarmed. Now, I am very concerned that a Brinks truck picking up $1 million from a bank has 2 guys carrying guns, and that the schools do not have officers carrying guns. I want to know what you think about that.
This would certainly not be one of the things that I would pursue. When we have emergencies, we call our NYPD that we work very closely with, but I don't think having school safety officers carrying guns is the answer to any of these problems.
What do you think is the answer?
I think better trained school safety officers, which we already have. Our crime is down 29%. Anything can happen at any time, in any place, but I do believe that we have very good rules and regulations on how you enter a building. They know who I am, and yet I have to show ID when I go into a building. And I think that the things that we have in place right now are fine with that. Having more guns in schools is not the answer to this issue.
Well, I wasn't suggesting that the kids should have guns. I hope you know that.
In terms of your other question,
Yes.
it's 1 to 133 students.
You have 1 psychologist for every 133 students?
That doesn't count guidance counselors and social workers. Remember, there are many categories of student support people.
And what was the number a year ago? Do you know?
I will get you the number from
Yeah,
last year. 1
okay.
second.
If you don't mind, I'll continue with the questions. I'm just curious, how many schools have you visited in my district?
I don't know specifically by district, but by this time, I have visited over 200 schools, probably more.
But I had to ask you a question that's self-centered entirely.
Be my guest.
You know that. So I want to know how many schools
Is
you
there a
visit.
specific school in your district?
No, I just want to continue feeling special. I want to know how many schools you visited in my district.
I can't give you that number. I mean, I have a school tracking record that I actually write every school I visited to, so I'm happy to send you that. I can do it from there.
Yes, but I don't want to know how many schools you visited.
No, I will let
want
you
to
know
know how many
specifically in your
Simcha
district.
schools you
I
visited,
will.
please.
Can I make a friendly amendment?
Yes.
Thank you, he's ceding time. We all want to feel special, so if you get him an answer, get us all answers.
Okay, I will.
Thank you, thank you.
Why did you come so early today?
I thought I came quite late.
I tried to wait until you finish.
Right, I thought you'd be done, but no.
You move on.
You've been very helpful to me. One other issue is the discussion about schools for children that will not go to college and who are extremely talented but don't have any patience to sit. I consider myself one of those people. So years ago, they had schools that taught trades. And, there's been so much discussion about Common Core. At the end of the day, a certain amount of the population will never do well on any of those tests because God did not create these kids to sit anywhere. That they have their own talents and will be brilliant plumbers, mechanics, painters, or whatever else. So I'm just wondering if there's anything that you can do or speak towards bringing back some of that so that so that a kid that may not be a mathematician, but will be a great contractor and earn a good livelihood, doesn't have to feel like there's something wrong with them when they go to school.
I'm so glad you asked. We have invested in 40 new and strengthening the ones we have, what we call CTE programs. CTE programs are multiple pathways. That means that you could go to college, you're still college ready, but if you choose to go directly into a trade, that's fine. I mean, for example, in fact, I think it was in your district, I went to something this Saturday, and I met with the head of the Carpenters Union. And one of the things that he told me, which I did not know, that the Carpenters Union also includes the Divers Union, because divers are carpenters underwater. And that jobs from divers started at $80,000 a year. So right away, we exchanged cards. And I already have someone meeting with him, because we not only, and this is why I talk about everyone has to be involved, we have to get the unions more involved in working in our high schools and in our colleges, because having a union card, the plumbers, the carpenters union, all these are jobs for the future. And I think it's really important. Our CTE programs and that's why I said I need your help. We could even create more CTE programs if the state laws would change to allow the degrees or the licensing for people, like, for example, if you have a pharmacy program, it's a classroom teacher, but it's a pharmacist. If it's a health program, it's someone in the health, and we cannot hire them long enough because the state has not processed these. So this is something we really want to work on. So
Yeah,
definitely.
I like the answer to that question, because I happen to have proposed legislation on some of what you discussed. So I want to just end my question by thanking you and thanking the mayor for the good work that's been done, and look forward to improvements. And thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator. At this point in time, all the members that have indicated they wish to question have done so, and we'll mercifully let you go to get back to the schools and the running of the schools. I just want to reiterate, I would have preferred, no offense, Mayor de Blasio being here. His testimony, his answering these kind of questions in concert with you would have been much more helpful to this committee, and would have spoken volumes about the system and about mayoral control. That was what we're here about. What is the mayor's input? How does the mayor handle this? What would the mayor be doing? How has it made a difference to have mayoral control? Your testimony, fantastic, I appreciate it, but we needed to hear from him. We needed follow-up questions to be heard from him. We have questions which we've given you copies of that need to be answered, and hopefully we'll get them. You don't have to do it right now, but if you can get them to us, to my office, and I'll distribute them to the members who have asked them. Make sure everybody gets a copy of what's proposed for them, so that there's no loss in that. But again, I reiterate, this would have been a better situation if the mayor were here to defend his, and I don't mean defend in a negative way, but to defend his running of the city schools. That I think is an imperative for us.
Well, I thank you for the opportunity, and I know I speak for the mayor as well when I say, in this particular situation, we really are very united in terms of wanting stability and to do what's best for the students of the city of New York. So thank you very much. I look forward to many more conversations.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, excusing myself.
Go right ahead.
Thank you, Chancellor.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Moving right along, is Dennis Walcott here? I know he was here earlier. He left. Mark Canizzaro, Executive Vice President of CSA. Mark?
Good morning. Good. If you don't mind. sit with me, Ermin? What's that? Okay. Good morning. Are you ready?
Ready.
Oh, okay, great. Good morning, Senator Marcelino, members of the Senate Education Committee.
Will the young lady who's leaning against the door jamb please stop, because you're turning the lights on and off? Thank you very much. Is there a possibility of getting a piece of tape put over that switch? There is tape put over that switch? How about an electric prod? Thank you, I'm sorry.
That's okay. My name is Mark Canizaro. I'm the Executive Vice President of the Council for School Supervisors and Administrators. We are the union that represents school principals and assistant principals, as well as educational administrators here in New York City. We thank you for this opportunity. We thank you for holding it in our backyard. It does certainly make it convenient for us. I will take Senator Felder's advice and tell you that we are in support of continued mayoral control of the school system. I will further take his advice and say that we are also in support of some refinements to the current system. We would like to see mayoral control extended, but not made permanent, at least not yet, if it is considered at some point. We are looking for some refinements to the composition of the what's currently called the PEP, the Panel for Educational Policy, per the board's bylaws. And we also are looking for some expansion of the authority of the current community education councils. Much of what I heard while I was waiting are some of the things that we support. We would like to see the composition of the panel changed slightly to a panel that has 7 appointees by the mayor rather than 8, with the retention of the requirements that are currently part of the panel's policy to have at least 2 parents selected who have had children attend public schools, and or a student who was a public school student within the last 2 years to be part of the mayor's selections. We'd like to see continued appointees, 1 by each borough president, the 5 borough presidents to each be able to select. And we would like the 13th selection to be a selection of the city council. We feel that this change would give the city council a voice at all PEP meetings and be able to directly influence policy before anything got to them for any type of debate. We support the continued authority of the PEP with the current statute as far as relating to proposed regulations, capital plan operating funds, allocations, and revenues. Closing and or consolidation of schools in their districts. Again, their vote, either for or against, could be reversed by a majority vote of the central board. We just feel that will increase their authority and create a stronger connection to parents in the community that we think has improved, but is still a little bit lacking. For that reason, CSA would certainly like to see the continuation of mayoral control. We do strongly advocate for the changes that we've asked for. And finally, we feel probably the #1 reason that we're advocating for this is when we have a question, a problem, a suggestion, we're able to go to one place and have that discussion. Thank you.
Mr. Kennedy.
Just before, just to make note of the fact that we did invite the UFT to attend both hearings. They have declined to attend.
Mr. Canizaro, thank you very much for your time here today, and I really appreciate your suggestions because, like I mentioned to the Chancellor, when something like mayoral controls expire, we have the opportunity to certainly make improvements to the system. So I thank you for your suggestions. We have seen many administrative changes over the years with mayoral control, one of them being the role of the principal. And all due respect to superintendents have a lot of schools under their authority and a lot of schools to be interested in, but the principal has one school, their own. Can you see a change in the authority or the role of principal changes as we go through possibly improving mayoral control?
Well, I don't think that whether or not we have mayoral control speaks to the authority of the principal. We have obviously and always been strong supporters on the principal being the person that makes the decisions for his or her building. You know, there's been a lot of talk about autonomy and the autonomy of a principal. CSA believes that when someone is selected as a principal, that means they've earned autonomy and should be able to operate their buildings as such. Now, of course, just like we're asking for in mayoral control, checks and balances on everyone is certainly important and necessary. But I think that is more that question that you've asked does not relate to mayoral control as much as it relates to philosophies and things of the times. So, you know, as far as mayoral control is concerned, we still think there's certainly more autonomy and more ability to run a building than there was in the previous system for those of us who have been around long enough.
I only mention because previous changes to mayoral control has had changes within the roles, not only the parents, but also teachers and administrators. So that's why I had mentioned it. But again, I thank you for your input and your insight and for your time here today.
Thank you. Very good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator.
I read your testimony before you got here, and I appreciated your recommendations for how we could make changes that would, I think, broaden the participation of others concerned about education. So I am hoping that in discussions of mayoral control, we might someday get to substance and not just the politics, as my colleague Senator Feldman pointed out. But I'm curious, you don't think that Department of Education should be brought under the same standards as other city agencies for procurement? Because that's been one of my concerns, that procurement ought to go through the same process as other city agencies with normal auditing and review process. The principals aren't concerned with that currently.
Well, I have to plead ignorance to knowing the exact procedures that the other agencies go through, but we feel that by making any tweaks that we've recommended, we think we could keep those checks and balances in place. I do happen to agree a bit with the Chancellor. What she said earlier is this particular PEP has been quite diligent when it comes to contracts and procurement, probably more so than we've seen in the past. So I wouldn't say that's been a concern, no.
And then I think it was in a previous administration, there was once upon a time a proposal that principals would be provided almost an administrative principal to work side by side with them so that you as principals could focus on the education, the students, the teachers, the classroom, and then recognizing the enormous administrative responsibilities you have over the schools, provide you someone who could take on those challenges. I always thought that sounded like a great model. I am so admiring of the work that principals do. And I think all of us who work in our communities know when you have a good principal, you have a school that functions, and when you don't, you have problems. So I'm wondering where you all are on that once upon a time proposal.
Anything this body can do to help that along the way, we would certainly appreciate.
And that model doesn't exist now anywhere?
No, some of the high schools have what we call assistant principals in charge of organization, and they do a lot of the work that you're referring to. But yeah, the administrative burdens on a principal are so huge. We just sent a survey out, and the number one comment about what could help folks improve their jobs would be taking away some of the enormous workload as far as paperwork and organization and administrative types of things. So as far as a principal and instructional leaders in the building, other assistant principals being able to get in the classrooms and really help move instruction, something like that would be certainly welcome with open arms.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Bill, do you have a question?
Well, I guess I can try this. So, most folks are really preoccupied with salary and benefits and so forth, and as principals, I guess you run the whole operation in the system. What is your take on these charters? I know it's about salaries and benefits and so forth, but what's the story with, how the charters doing with you guys?
So first of all, CSA represents a small group of, I think, about 9 charter schools.
Okay.
How
are they measuring up?
Oh, they're doing quite well. The charters that we represent are independent charter schools. So they're all independent in what we call conversion charters. So at one point...
Could you explain what that means?
Sure. So they are single operations, okay? And they were converted from at one time, they were New York City public schools. Okay, so now they've converted into charter schools. Several years back, before I came to CSA, is when they converted, but we've been working with them quite closely. We actually think that the conversation has to be a little bit more about what you were alluding to earlier, I think, Senator. We want to be able to put some of the rhetoric aside that we hear all the time. The children that go to our schools are our kids, and they are learning. Some students in both places learning better than other students and being given better opportunities, and we want to be able to have an open and honest discussion without the politics and the rhetoric and all of these things that have seemed to dominate the press lately. If there's something that can help my school when I was a school principal, I don't care where I'm learning it from, I'm happy to learn it. And I think that most people feel that way, but we've gotten to this argument now where one has to be better than the other or not, and that is what's dominating right now. It's what's better. And I don't think one system is necessarily better, or one child, because they go to a particular brand of school, is getting a better education than another. I think we can all learn from each other, and we should all learn from each other.
I guess I would agree with that, except that at some point you have to measure what folks are doing to determine whether or not it's actually better. And then the fact, if it is, take that lesson and replicate it so that those who are not doing so better can do better.
That's 100% correct.
That's the genius of that opportunity. And so the whole idea of the charter school was that they would be better and that they would teach us how to teach our children to do better. And so there would be lessons learned that could be replicated and provided to the other students that might not have those opportunities. And so that's my concern. Is
well,
what are we learning from this model that is supposed to be there to teach us how to do better?
We're going to have a hard time. We're going to have a hard time. I agree with what you just said as far as, being able to learn and being able to measure. But we're going to have the hard time measuring anything accurately and honestly when the discussion is us versus you, because everyone is trying to protect their piece of the pie when that happens, and that's not a good thing, and that's what's happening right now. It's that discussion, so no one is going to let their guard down and say, hey, you know what, and that's the issue that we have right now.
So with all due respect, I agree with you, but I don't think that that's what I'm saying. I'm just saying that the whole idea of the charter movement was that it would be not a second set of per se, but rather an opportunity for us, for the educators to get some models of success that can be replicated. Not necessarily a one-size-fits-all, but what can work. And instead of learning from those, quote, labs of experimental opportunity, they've duplicated themselves without letting us know what the benefit was that could be replicated. And so folks are making large salaries and contracts, but when you look at the success of the students, they're not measuring up. And I don't want to dismiss any of those that are, but generally speaking, they're not competitive in the way that they were expected to be.
Well, I don't think we're disagreeing as much as you think we're disagreeing. I think a lot of what we're saying is the same, and I agree. Look, when you have any type of system, any type of new experimental type of things, different procedures, different ways to educate children. Not every one of those ways is going to measure up, right? And some of our schools in New York City are doing a wonderful job at a lot of things, and that needs to be replicated also,
Sure.
right? And that's one of the things that I think we are trying to do with some of the programs we have, both interacting with charter schools, and that's just in the beginning, as well as interacting with each other. And to replicate some best practices, because best practices can be replicated in lots of different places and lots of different areas. But I do agree with you that what the intention is and was needs to be brought back into focus so that we can do exactly what we're supposed to do, and all children can benefit from something that is beneficial in any building, whether it's a traditional district school or a charter school or any other type of building where children are learning.
Thank you.
The line of questioning is interesting, but can we bring this back to mayoral control?
Well, the essence of this stems from mayoral control, because without it, you wouldn't have it. It was the dictatorial behavior of Bloomberg administration that brought this into the system. That's why I'm bringing it up. And there's never really been the kind of review of it to measure whether or not.
And that we could do in another hearing, and I don't mind doing it, because I think your
But I'm
point
saying mayoral
your point is well
control
taken, but-
is what's measuring, is why we're at this point. And so
How
this
is-
is
how
one
is-
of the flowerings of mayoral control, which is the charter, which is this charter stuff. This is the Bloomberg's legacy that I'm talking about.
So if
this is
you-
what he was bragging about.
if
And
you-
so I just want to make sure that if it works, then let's replicate it. As if it doesn't work, then let's fix it.
If the concern is about one person having too much authority and control, then I think some of the suggestions that we've placed in here does help to.
Let me respond to that. Let me just be clear. It's not about the control. It's about whether or not the model works, not control.
Right.
Okay. So if this model works, it has lessons, it has practices, it has procedures, however you want to describe it, that can be replicated, right? Where is that at?
That's what I just told you. We need to do better at replicating everywhere, not just there, but everywhere.
No, but that
Yep.
was specifically what that
Yep.
was for. That
Okay.
was what the folks thought was going to happen, and that way it would be replicated throughout
Right.
the system.
Like I said, I think we're
where's
agreeing
the
more than
report
we-
that says ABC, we learned X, Y, Z.
You asked that question earlier, and that report's not going to come from the CSA, but I believe that report should be forthcoming, hopefully from another agency.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
How many times do you meet with the mayor, relative, any other union colleagues, relative to mayoral control, relative to the city schools?
So Ernest Logan, our president, meets with the mayor from time to time. To be honest with you, I couldn't give you a specific number, but I wouldn't say that it's less than 4 or 5 times in the last year.
Specifically dealing with non-contract mayoral control?
Dealing with a host of issues, and I'm sure that is included, yes.
Fine, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Thank you for your testimony. We appreciate you coming.
Thank you, and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
The next group would be Teresa Abalita, Ellen McHugh, and Mona Davids.